Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have been meeting in Kyiv. Von der Leyen and her team of top officials are part of the biggest EU delegation to visit since the start of Russia's invasion. They have been discussing new sanctions on Moscow as well as EU aid to Ukraine. Here now is Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Let's have a listen.
Europe has been by Ukraine's side since day one, because we know that the future of our continent is being written here. We know that you are fighting for more than yourselves. What is at stake is freedom. This is a fight of democracies against authoritarian regimes. Putin tries to deny the existence of Ukraine, but what he risks instead is the future of Russia. Our presence in Kyiv today gives a very clear signal. The whole of the European Union is in this with Ukraine for the long term.
Ukrainians at the battlefield defend specifically those values that Europe has got united on and keeps uniting, and we cannot lose it. So every step to bigger union between Ukraine and the European Union inspires our people, and this gives a result to the entire Europe. It gives the result to our society in order to get defended against our joint enemy.
And let's get more on those statements now. We are joined by correspondent Matthias Bollinger, who has been at the press conference for us. Matthias, what should we make of these statements from von der Leyen and Zelenskyy?
It is, of course, highly unusual that the whole leadership of the EU, that means the 16 commissars and von der Leyen, who is the president of the Commission, and also the president of the Council, who heads the meetings, who chairs the meetings of the heads of state and heads of government, that they all together travel to a war zone. That's highly unusual. It's meant as a strong symbol, but there are also a lot of things to discuss on the working level. It is Ukraine's accession process has started, and there are many measures that the EU is undertaking to support Ukraine in this war, economic measures, but also military aid. So there's lots of things to be discussed, and we just heard the little bit lofty tone of these statements. It is really meant as a strong signal at the same time, and as delivering an aid package. Yeah.
Can Ukraine expect any further pledges from the EU on this visit?
Yes, yeah, there are lots of very specific and maybe not very general or like, I wouldn't say small because it's a lot, but like very specific things that they are delivering, from delivering 35 million LED light bulbs to help Ukraine save energy that will be distributed free to the people, to billions of economic aid and lots of agreements, for example, on customs-free exports that was pledged last year, that has been in place already, but this will be extended, and many specific steps that will, first of all, help Ukraine survive, and then also ease the way of Ukraine into the European Union. Some things that member states usually get only when they access the European Union are being already granted to Ukraine in advance.
Matthias Bollinger in Kyiv, thank you. And now we head to Brussels, where correspondent Jack Perrick is standing by with a view from there. So we've just seen, Jack, the European Commission's commitment to continue to help Ukraine. How did Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's announcements resonate there in Brussels?
Well, I think it's very much what we were expecting. Von der Leyen, during that press conference, was really keen to outline all the money that has been going to Ukraine from the European Union, all the things they've done, the sanctions that they've been putting on Russia in order to try and strangle the Russian economy, to try and bring an end to the war. But it was interesting how Volodymyr Zelenskyy responded. He said that the sanctions had slowed down and that they wanted to do more. Also, there's a slightly interesting aspect of how this is being termed. The Ukrainian translation of what this visit was being called by the Ukrainian president was EU integration days, these next 2 days, perhaps trying to avoid confusing, the general Ukrainian population with all of the sort of names of the EU structures of how they do meetings. It's being called the EU-Ukraine Summit. But it shows that the Ukrainians see this as a gear towards entering the European Union. They wanted a promise from the Commission President that the framework to get into the EU could be within the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years maybe. But a lot of the capitals of the European Union are saying that this still needs to be a very firm process. Normally EU accession takes somewhere in the region of sort of 10 to 20 years for a normal process, and many even longer than that even. While the EU is trying to show Ukraine that it can go quickly, the message is that this still needs to continue in the normal formalities of accession as well.
And in the meantime, the European Parliament has held a session in which it reaffirmed its commitment to Ukraine's EU membership. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, they did. Earlier today, they voted on a resolution calling on pretty much the same thing, to be honest. The focus of it being the accession process, saying that Ukraine should be offered this route into the European Union. The whole of, in 2014, when the initial annexation of Crimea and everything that happened since then, a lot of that is about a pro-EU government in Kyiv rather than a pro-Russian one. And so the European Union, which is trying to export democratic values around the world, and especially to its eastern neighbours, knows that it needs to remain committed to those promises. But what the European parliamentarians also voted in their resolution was that the ordinary process of making sure that all of the sort of formalities are fulfilled and all of the agreements come and the standards of governance come in line with the European Union, they called on that as well. And the EU's enlargement commissioner, who's in charge of this, Olivier Vaihe, he tweeted, he's also in Ukraine at the moment, he tweeted to say that there needs to be the same process. De-oligarchization, he called it, needs to make sure that the justice structures in Ukraine are up to standard, and many other things that are also quite difficult for a country to do when they are in wartime, not in peacetime, which is normally how a country would enter the EU.
Jack Parrick in Brussels, thank you.